Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rachel. I'm an airline pilot by day, but when I'm on the ground, I like to study business. And for the past few weeks, it looks like I've been focused more on the business behind charities. If you are new here, I did a financial breakdown on the Invictus Games Invictus Games Vancouver, where I tried to break down $63 million of the budget, and I tried breaking down just a small fraction of $21 million that was dedicated to a workforce of 90 employees for $11 million and catering and accommodations for $10.8 million. So $21 million, I tried actually breaking down those numbers, and I could only find about 12. Cross-checking everything with their own paperwork and with their hotels they booked and everything. And couldn't really find the rest of that money. So that's kind of led to a lot of questions that are being asked. Some journalists have picked up on my work, and I'm very appreciative that it's getting out there. And then I also did a video breaking down Invictus Australia. And basically they were receiving about $3 million from the government every year, and then $2 million of that was just going to payroll, about 66%. So I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but the vice chair of Invictus did just step down, as well as the government of Australia has now discontinued all funding for Invictus Australia. There's like all kinds of different levels. Maybe I'll do that in a separate video. But today it's going to be a little bit different. Today we're going to break down Sentebale, because I really wanted to see what Dr. Chandauka saw when she came and she took over Sentebale. That's really what we're doing here. And then kind of what does that really mean for the Harry brand, right? Like what is he? What does he want, and what does he represent? So if we go ahead, we're just going to look. For those of you who don't know, Sentebale was started by Prince Harry back in about 2006. Or so, and he started this charity in the name of his mother, the late Princess Diana, and he resigned last year in March 2025. So Dr. Chandauka was brought on. She had been on the board previously, but she was brought on later, back in 2023, and it's really interesting to kind of see their annual reports, what they were filed, and kind of reading in between the lines of the report. For those of you who don't know, Tom Bauer did a really good chapter on Sentebale, if you're interested in that, or if you want to hear in his book Betrayal, if you want to hear the abridged version, which was a lot more fun to listen to, I think, RHR Jen actually does a really nice breakdown of the Sentebale Invictus chapter. So you can go in and read that. But lots of drama. There was basically Dr. Chandauka filed a whistleblower act. She was questioning the finances of Sentebale and where the money was going. All of a sudden there was pressure on her to resign. She files a whistleblower act. There's a pause for everything. And then basically the entire board resigns, right? So I don't know why they didn't just wait it out to see what the Charity Commission said, but it's interesting stuff. So the first thing we're going to do before we get into the spreadsheet, we're just going to take a look at the annual report that was filed for Sentebale. Now this is for the year ending in 2024. So if you go to page 43, there's a couple of really juicy tidbits in here. So we have the 16-month period and the one-off donation of $1.5 million US dollars, or 1.1 million pounds, by Prince Harry, which was given to the charity from the proceeds of Spare. And then we go into, basically she's talking about, or I shouldn't say she, but the board is talking about how there was structural weaknesses within Sentebale. She talks about how there was a UK headquarters, which again, this charity is like in Africa. Why is there a UK headquarters? That was costing £650,000 per year for just a handful of employees. And then how since 2019, there was a declining number and overall contribution of donations to the charity, and reducing all overall numbers and levels of high net worth and family foundations since 2020. Now, besides the pandemic, what happened in 2020? So, anyway, so she talks about the donor pipeline here, and then she also talks about the polo charity match and how that actually ended up costing Sentebale $136,000. So basically, I'll just give you the abridged version. There was a family in Miami that was giving the polo grounds to Sentebale at a discount. We'll say at a discount. What ended up happening was Harry wanted to bring his Netflix crew. The family, of course, got wind of this and said, well, no, you can't do that because now it's not a charitable event. It is a commercial endeavor. Here's our actual prices to rent our polo field, which Sentebale could not afford. And so they went and they found a different polo field. But they still didn't make any money off it, $136,000. The other interesting here that I see is point number 3, where it looks like $1 million was going to be promised to the charity, but only got $250,000. Which I don't know. I mean, they keep that all anonymous, so I don't know who that was from. But anyway, that was sort of another issue that they went through. And then you can go on. So that was page 40. Excuse me if I didn't say it earlier. That was page 43. But that whole section starts at page 41 if you want to go in and see that financial report. And it's quite a long report. So it took a bit, but there's some Easter eggs kind of thrown in there about how there was a patron that wanted to do less charitable work, and they were trying to figure out how to give him less work. And there was some things in there where you're like, is that Prince Harry? And then I found it. Actually, if you go and you look at page 76 of the exact same report, public interest disclosure addressing disinformation. This is interesting. Now, granted, I don't look at charities all the time, like this isn't my day job, but I've never actually seen a section dedicated to the misinformation that was provided in the media. So, and basically Dr. Chandauka and the rest of the board correcting these assumptions, which is, interesting. Anyway, so if you go down to 76, you'll see the public interest and disclosure addressing disinformation. And if you go down to page 78, I find here, it says the internal conflict is understood to be over about moving the charity's fundraising efforts to Africa. And when the board tried to remove Chandauka from her voluntary role, she sued in response. So her response is, in 2023, Sentebale's then trustees, sought to implement a new fundraising strategy in the United States. The fundraising pivot involved substantially expanding fundraising efforts into the U.S. whilst continuing to nurture donor relationships in other locations, including Africa. The principal focus on the U.S. was vital given the relocation of one of its former patrons, hint, hint, and the scale of philanthropy from U.S. to African-based organizations. So they wanted him to do some fundraising in the States. And if you go down to page 80, there's all these Q&As, and you can read all of them. Dr. Chandauka worked for free. Apparently someone had released to the press that she wanted $300,000 in payment or something. It's like, no, I worked for free. But here's another one. Mainstream media reported that a person familiar with the trustees' account of events said the charity has been almost entirely reliant on the positive view of Prince Harry to raise funds. The statement from Sentebale is, this is false. 70% of the funding needs of Sentebale now come from several institutional relationships cultivated by the teams in Lesotho and Botswana, demonstrating the charity's strong foundation in its operational locations. Basically, Harry raised 20%, less than 20% of the total funds. And in 2025, obviously, there was no reliance on him at all as a patron. Now, this is where it gets good. Remember how I said there was like little bits where it was like, I think they were referencing Prince Harry, but I don't want to assume, right? Because we're not a gossip channel. We are a fact channel. Thank you very much. But this paragraph here, The charity acknowledges that the former patron's relocation to the USA and changes in his public profile following the publication of his memoir, Spare, have affected traditional fundraising approaches. The former patron has consistently expressed his preference to reduce his time commitment to events-based fundraising activities, a position that was known to the board. During this financial reporting period, the charity worked to develop alternative and diverse funding strategies to reduce dependence on any single fundraising approach and ensure long-term sustainability. So, we know Harry does not like to fundraise. That is the one thing he does not like to do. Because remember that lawsuit that came out a few months ago, those text messages were released where Harry was all upset that he had to go and do a fundraising event. This checks, right? I mean, they're saying it right here. So the report's interesting. It's quite long. If you want to read it, there are kind of Easter eggs throughout. I'm sure you guys will find more in there. But it does cross-reference Tom Bauer's book quite a bit, which I find interesting. Okay, let's start off with 2016. Okay, so this is going to be the first year where they still have a little bit of a surplus until 2021. So they had $4.3 million in income. They had $4.2 in expenses. So they had about $100,000 of a surplus. Now, the cost of fundraising is really high this year. It's actually the highest that it'll be for the next, well, for this particular chart. It was almost at 40%, but that's because they had quite a large concert. And it sounds like they had a concert and they had other events. So that was 1.7 million for all of that. Payroll was quite modest, 16%. As a reminder, remember Invictus Australia, that sub-charity, they were taking 62, 64, and 66% were going to payroll. So I was like, oh, 16%, that's actually quite modest. Then we have some net assets in there, cash on hand, and then free reserves. So we go to 2017, and the income's 3.5 million, and the expenses are 3.7. So about $200,000 of a deficit that they overspent. 14% went to fundraising costs at $500,000. Payroll was 24%. It's a bit of a jump. And then the net assets go from 2.7 or 2.9 to 2.7. So they lose about $226,000 there. And then cash goes down as well as free reserves all go down. We can continue on this particular sort of progression, and we can see everything is just red. What I found, a number that jumped out at me that I thought was interesting was if you look at 2019, take a look at the percentage of the funds that went to payroll. That was 23%. And if you look at the other years, 23.7, 24.7, 16%, right? It's modest compared to I haven't seen every charity, but it was modest for me, for my eyes, compared to what like Invictus Australia was taking. But take a look at this jump between 2019 to 2020. Payroll jumped up over 10%. Isn't that interesting? So, and we all know what happened in 2020, right? I think that's interesting. I was like, oh, you don't really see the numbers jump up that much anywhere else. I mean, you kind of do between 2016 and 2017. You do see an 8% increase. But yeah, I thought 10.2% was interesting. Now, in the paperwork, Dr. Chandauka and the board say that they had ran in a deficit every year, except for one, in 2017. I have cross-checked the numbers a ton because I was sick on top of it, so I had a lot more time to cross-check these numbers. I saw that in 2021 and 2022 they were in the black, but like in 2021 it was barely. Because remember, they talk about, yes, we got this nice lump sum from Harry, but we don't really have we didn't have good years, and we didn't actually really change anything fundamental in the charity itself. So, once the life preserver gets waterlogged, like, what else are we going to do? Like, how is this organization going to change? So if you look at 2021, remember that's the year of the donation of spare, they only had a deficit of $100,000, which is a lot better than overspending by $400,000, etc. But it was a small surplus. Cost of fundraising still stays around the same at 15.8%. The year prior it was at 14%. Payroll is now at 34% of overall cost. And then we see obviously a change in assets and cash, etc. Right? 2022, so they're still kind of floating a little bit, I think, on this $1.5 million donation. You have income of $4.5 million, $3.5 in expenses. So they have, now it's a healthy surplus of $960,000. And the cost of fundraising goes up to 18%. Again, we're still keeping it under 20, which looks good. Payroll drops slightly, 33%. And then, of course, net assets, cash, free reserves, those all look healthy. What I find to be really interesting is 2023 and 2024. Now, Dr. Chandauka came in September 1 of 2023. So the 2023 period end here is a little different. So these two lines, but I want you to see how much changes here. So take a look at 2023. Income's at 3.4, expenses are 3.7. So now they're back in the hole, right? They're back in the deficit of $370,000. Cost of fundraising still stays around the same, 11%. Payroll has now jumped up to 35.3%. Their assets have gone down. Their cash has gone down. Again in the red, right? Like $600,000, right? Like there's, Now, Dr. Chandauka comes in September 1 of 2023. That's this bottom line here. Take a look, and this is ending in 2024. Okay, so take a look at this. This is income of $3.3 million, expenses of $4.9. So that is a deficit now of $1.6 million. Now, remember, the other deficits that we looked at were $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, which I'm not making light of that because holy cow, if I was $400,000 in the hole, I'd be terrified. But for a charity that has seen those numbers, 1.6 is massive. Massive. Cost of fundraising, still in the teens, so 16%, that's fine. That goes to 16%. 1.8 million is payroll. That goes up another couple percentage points. It's now up to 36.7% goes to payroll. But net assets, obviously 1.6 million. The net assets and the surplus deficit columns are pretty much the same throughout the entire spreadsheet if you guys take a look. Cash on hand. $877,000 of cash just gone. And their free reserves are they've lost $697,000. They have $200,000 in reserve and $500,000 in cash when Harry leaves Sentebale. That's all. What I wanted to do is I wanted you guys to see what Dr. Chandauka saw and why it may have been necessary for her to in fact, file a whistleblower act. What I find interesting is that last line, right? The $1.6 million in that deficit, because that is extreme for having seen their other deficits in the past. I think for it to go up threefold is really interesting. And there is a similarity there with Sentebale's deficit and with Archewell. Now, for those of you who don't know, Archewell was started by Harry and Meghan once they left the royal fold, and this was going to be their big philanthropic event, right? This was going to be like the big, like the Clinton Foundation, right? And they also had, well, they had a $2 million deficit for the year ending in 2024, according to their 990 filings. Now, it is important to note that Harry is no longer part of Sentebale. Him and the rest of the board resigned, right? Archewell, the foundation, is no longer exists. It is now Archewell Philanthropies. So it has dissolved because a foundation, you actually have to like file paperwork and stuff. Foundations, you don't have to do any of that. So the transparency isn't, you don't have to be as transparent, if at all. I actually haven't really looked into philanthropies versus foundation. So forgive my ignorance in that sphere. But it's important to note, they don't have to do government filings anymore. So the question is, with these two charities with Harry involved, we have to ask the question, are institutions being strengthened by Prince Harry and the Sussex brand, or are they being forced to absorb the cost of dealing with Harry and the Sussex brand? And what I think is interesting is royal charity had sort of that sort of magic behind it, right? There was an automatic authority. There was, you know, the balconies, the military ceremonies. There was all that stuff that comes with representing the crown, right? Sort of that international prestige that we're all familiar with. But what I don't think maybe Harry realizes is that he's not representing the crown anymore. He's not really doing these charitable events as a prince. He's Harry the celebrity now. And celebrity charity, I think, is a little bit more fragile. The question is no longer whether Harry's name brings trust, confidence, or strength to Invictus. The question is, does Invictus lend those qualities to Harry? Because veterans should never be used as a shield for a man whose public reputation can't stand on its own. Invictus was built to give veterans a platform, not to give Harry refuge. And maybe that is the question. Does Invictus need Harry, or does Harry need Invictus? Until next time. All right, everyone. Well, that is the show for this week. Next week, I am going to be breaking down what £26 million could help with the people of Birmingham. I am looking through their budget cuts because they did just come out of bankruptcy, but it is amazing what £26 million could do. Yeah, but you know what? Maybe the video essay will get in the right hands, and maybe there will be some change somewhere, and maybe that money will get to, get to the people who really need it, or there will be more financial transparency for this particular Invictus Games. That would be nice too. So we'll see. I love all your comments. I try to read them, but I do work full-time still, so I'm sorry I can't read all of them. But I do see them, and so thank you very much for all your statements of support and stuff. I'll leave the my work for the Sentebale. I'll leave that at the very end of this video. You guys can take a screenshot. Always double check my work if you feel like it. Like, tell me, hey, you messed up on this column, or I think this was wrong. Like, go. It's fine. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, like, I accept it because, like I said, I'm an airline pilot, right? I make metal tubes do this, and I'm not a forensic accountant, so I might have gotten some stuff wrong. So that's why I'm always like, double check my work, and yeah, that's all. That's it. So hopefully, we'll see what happens. I'm kind of hoping that the games will maybe be a little more transparent, like no redacted documents. That would be kind of nice to see, that the money's actually getting to the people that it says it's designed to serve. So yeah, so that's it. So I will see you guys in a few more days with that Birmingham breakdown, and then I'm just gonna keep working on Birmingham. And I will work on other charities. Actually, that's a question for you guys. What other charities do you want me to comb through? You know, I was thinking about the Prince's Trust and the Earthshot. I was thinking about doing that as well, or Halo. Some people were asking for Halo. But yeah, let me know if there's any charities that you guys want me to. And you can always contact me, by the way, if you want like a more in-depth letter or something. Contact me on the contact form under montecitoMinimalist.com, also where you can buy this lovely Recollections May Vary collection, along with other wonderful collections such as the I Can't Believe I'm Not Getting Paid for This collection, the Redacted Budget collection, and the Retired Yacht Girl collection. So anyway, and amongst many, many other things that you guys can go and shop there. Also read Satirical Saturdays if you want kind of like the equivalent of Saturday morning cartoons. I'm quite proud of a few of those. So yeah, so until next time, I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.